Good morning. It's great to be here at the January meeting of the AgriFish Council. A very busy agenda, but first of all would like to wish my colleagues from Cyprus very well in their presidency and Maria in the chair, and to thank Jacob and the Danish for an excellent presidency over the last 6 months where they progressed many files. Today we'll discuss a range of really important issues. The strategy on the bioeconomy is something that we have a great interest in Ireland. We will be launching our own national strategy on bioeconomy later this year, and also holding a global summit on the bioeconomy in the back end of this year during our presidency of the EU. The Common Agricultural Policy is integral to what we do. Getting this structure right for the next 7 years is critical for our farmers, for our food companies, but also for our rural economies. The Common Agricultural Policy is at the heart of EU policy, so food security needs to remain there, and we need a properly funded CAP to do that. We'll discuss that at length. From a trade perspective, there's many different elements of trade that we will be discussing, from the recent developments on Mercosur, for a position I've clearly articulated my position on at various meetings here previously, but also at the lunchtime meeting on import controls, a really important element to give confidence to our consumers as well as to our farmers in terms of the food safety controls that are in place and the increased introduction of them, and the efforts by Commissioner Verhally in that regard. CBAM is of big concern to us in Ireland from an agriculture perspective in relation to the element around fertiliser. Fertiliser is key to what we do in our farming system. We agree with the general principle of CBAM and what is trying to be achieved, but from the perspective of its impact on increasing the cost on fertiliser, the uncertainty with the quarterly reporting, there are technical measures there that we do need an understanding of, and we'll work with Member States on as well. Delighted to be joined here today as well by my colleague Minister Dooley, who will be speaking on a number of fishery points throughout the meeting as well.
Among the measures to compensate and to mitigate the impact of Mercosur agreement, there should be origin labelling of foods. What do you think?
Regional labelling? Yes, so look, in general what we need to do is, and I'm aware of the proposal, I think it's by the French and others, and we will work through their perspective on where they're coming from this. We are stronger together as a European Union. We work on those measures, and then we have different perspectives on how we do that. And I think everybody shares the concern from a food perspective around how we can continue to have food security. So whether that's labelling, whether that's trade deals, whether it's the Common Agricultural Policy, these are all issues we need to work through. And particularly later this year when Ireland has the presidency, I look forward to working with colleagues on all of those shared perspectives.
Do you think it makes sense, a proposal like this, origin labelling of food?
I can see the perspective behind it, and I think we just have to be careful not to undermine the common nature of our common policy. So we are a single market, and we all need to recognise the strength there is in that. We all have our own sovereignty, we all have our own identity, and there's a balance. There's a balance in everything, and I look forward to hearing more of that proposal today, to seeing the perspective where it's coming from and how we can get a workable solution to that.
Minister, what kind of changes are you looking at for the CAP?
So from the Common Agriculture perspective, everything and all of our ambitions that are in that space need a properly funded CAP. 80% funding for what we have now is not sufficient, and we can't have food security taken for granted across the EU. This is something that's central to what we do. It's a key approach from Ireland from that perspective. We recognise the proposals, most recent proposals by President von der Leyen, in relation to the increased allocation of €45 billion, but it's the mechanism of how that's worked out through the NRPP, through the use of the rural clause, how much of that, and the role of social cohesion fund and how much money is being linked. This is quite technical, but ultimately it's about us being able to have the maximum flexibility to access the amount of money that we need to be able to support our farmers in our agri-food sector, like the Common Agricultural Policy has done for the last 60 years.
In this respect, to having a strongest and distinct, let's say, CAP.
Yes, so the ring-fence nature of 80% was a good starting point to be able to build upon. But even with the NRPP structure, we have to be sure that the flexibility is there at Member State to be able to do what you need to do. So on the one hand, it is welcome that there's extra money there being front-loaded from the midterm review, but it's about, can the Member State access it? And I'm aware other Member States, this does bring them up to close to 100%, or in some cases over 100%. For Ireland, because of our existing structure, that is not the case. That's been understood by Commissioner Hansen's team, and it's something I'll continue to articulate here so that we can find mechanisms here on a technical level to give us the flexibility to access the most amount of money for our farmers and for our food industry.
Capping and aggressivity that's in the Commission's proposal for the post-2027 CAP.
You know, as Ireland prepares for the presidency in the second half of 2026, I've been engaging with all member states in bilateral meetings as well as the AgriFish Council at the Global Forum for Food in Berlin last week. I had a series of those meetings, and I'm really interested in other colleagues' views on these spaces. Ireland will be an honest broker in the chair, and we will work through all of these issues to get the best possible outcome. And at the heart of our approach to the Common Agricultural Policy is having sufficient subsidiarity and flexibility for member states to be able to design a CAP that best meets their local needs, while not losing the benefit of the common element of the Common Agricultural Policy, which has served us all so well. Thank you.